Hello and welcome to the special program of DBC News, Meet the Envoy. Viewers, we are very fortunate to have a special guest in our studio, His Excellency Ambassador and Head of Delegation of the EU to Bangladesh, Charles Whiteley. Let's talk with him. Hello, Charles.
Hello.
How are you?
Very well, thanks. You?
Your Excellency, thanks for coming in our studio.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And how is everything?
Very good, thank you. Nice to be here and see your studios.
Excellency, we have seen that you have attended the Padma Bridge opening ceremony, and so far I remember I interviewed you that day,
yeah.
and you were very excited that time. And would you please share your views again about the Bangladeshi, this dream project?
Well, it was very nice to see you there. I think there was such a big crowd of people enjoying as a festive day, the opening of the Padma Bridge, also a historic day because of course this was a historic moment for Bangladesh. Historic moment for Bangladesh's development. This great infrastructure, 6.3 kilometers long, that will produce, much better links through the country, enabling goods to come from the south to markets in Dhaka and so on. So I think it was a very special day, and I think it sends a great signal about Bangladesh's place in the world. Also about the economic prospects for Bangladesh, because I think we've all heard that this bridge may bring a growth in GDP of over 1.2%. So that's a great boost and a great investment. And I think it's also the human aspect of it that touched me most on that day, because as you remember, when we crossed for the first time, we arrived on the other side and there were thousands of people just waiting to run to the bridge and get a glimpse of this big project, and ordinary people who felt proud to be Bangladeshi that day and to see something that Bangladesh itself has built. Nobody from the outside has provided funds for this bridge, so it's Bangladesh owned. Yep. And I think the people and government of Bangladesh can be proud of what's been achieved.
That's great. Excellency, you seem to maintain selective public relation along with the media people in Bangladesh on regular basis, and you are very much active on Twitter too. What's your experience about social media in Bangladesh?
What I find nice is that I've had Twitter accounts in other countries. I've served in 3 or 4 countries. In Bangladesh, I rarely get trolling or negative comments. There's always a very positive response from the people who follow me on Twitter. And I think that's a nice thing. You often see that in other countries that it can be quite toxic. And I know this happens, of course, everywhere. It happens in Bangladesh. But my personal experience is that also because Bangladesh has a practice of being friendly to foreigners, I think they respond very positively to social media engagement. And we're trying to do more of that. I think we hope to increase our followers and share what we are doing as part of our friendship and partnership with Bangladesh. And I also like the fact that in Bangladesh, and I experienced this in my first time here in 2005 to 9, there's so many different media outlets that are working on different issues and specialist issues or general news issues and of course entertainment issues. I think it really, the diversity is there, and that's a very important facet of the media landscape in Bangladesh. So I think all my colleagues who are here posted in Bangladesh appreciate this ability to connect with ordinary Bangladeshis, because often we're in meetings with government or the bureaucracy, but it's nice to get a chance to communicate directly with ordinary people.
That's good. Excellency, we know that European Union is the largest trading partner of Bangladesh. My question is, what's your expectation from the Bangladesh to protect its valuable business relation with European Union as a whole?
Well, I think it's going very well, as you said. We're the largest export destination for Bangladesh goods. And of course, the vast proportion of that is ready-made garments. We're also the main foreign direct investment source in Bangladesh. So I'm very happy that's happening. I think we've seen, in spite of everything, in spite of COVID and now the crisis and aggression in Ukraine, we've seen those figures growing now. I saw that Bangladesh in its entirety had surpassed $50 billion in exports, which is a very big landmark. So we really wish Bangladesh industry well, because it's the engine of Bangladesh's growth. And I think we want to make sure that we can continue being the major trading partner of Bangladesh, also through more investment, because we, I think, invested over $2 billion in Bangladesh last year. That can certainly increase dramatically because the business climate is changing here quickly. There are still some difficulties and red tape that mean it's not optimal, but certainly business in Europe is taking another look and saying, this is a country where we'd like to explore the possibilities. And I think when that comes, We may also see diversification accelerating in different sectors, because that's an important point. And I'm pleased that we have this regular discussion with the Bangladesh government and private sector on how best to calibrate the relationship. So we have our business climate dialogue, which we have every year with the government. We have regular engagement with BKMEA, with the Chambers of Commerce here. And that means we understand what's needed and have a good relationship with everybody who's involved in the business sector.
That's a great news. And would you please enlighten us about your trade and investment plan concerning Bangladesh in near future?
Well, as I said, we definitely want that to increase. I think we're launching an initiative called EU-Bangladesh Meaning Business in the final quarter of this year. And that's supposed to bring together European business and Bangladeshi business directly to discuss how to do more business together. And I think we want to start in new areas like the ICT sector, where there's exciting things happening in Bangladesh, new startups. There's a highly educated, youthful workforce in Bangladesh, and that's very attractive to the European market. So I hope we can stimulate some of these new areas. We're working with the OECD as well in partnership with the ministries here on a trade review process, which will try to take best practice from other countries, like, say, Vietnam, where they've diversified into different sectors, or Indonesia, and see if that's applicable in Bangladesh. So I think working together is the key, bringing private sector, government, international partners. But in the end of the day, I think Bangladesh has many entrepreneurs, and all the energy comes from Bangladesh anyway.
Yeah.
You don't need help, but sometimes partnership can be a good stimulating thing.
That's great. And we know that majority part of R&D goods are being exported to EU from Bangladesh. Would you please suggest how Bangladesh could boost the volume of RMZ exports in EU? How?
Well, funnily enough, we just had a visit of European parliamentarians, and they visited a state-of-the-art yarn factory, which showed the kind of innovative thinking that's happening in Bangladesh. This yarn was being made from raw materials or waste, like pineapple skins and other material. Very green, very eco-friendly, and creating a circular economy. So I think Bangladesh is very aware of these selling points for Europe. Environmental friendliness, we see that Bangladesh is leading in the world in terms of LEED certification as environmentally friendly factories. And that people pay attention to. And I think that will increasingly give Bangladesh a competitive advantage in the European market.
Okay.
We're going to be introducing new measures and legislation in Europe probably next year on due diligence, which means big companies have to check that there's no child labour or bad social and labour practices and good environmental practices. Bangladesh is ahead of the pack in that sense. So I firmly believe Bangladesh can maintain its competitive edge by already having these good practices in the environment and so on. I think another point that we've discussed with the industry is diversifying into different products within the garments zone. So at the moment there's still quite a concentration on quite low-level products, t-shirts and so on. Yeah. And there's a lot of potential with sportswear and specialty wear for the European market, where there's a greater added value. So in other words, the potential for more profit. So I think this is all very exciting, and we can be optimistic that the garments destination of Europe will remain a big one for Bangladesh. And I see that's the same in other partners. The exports to the US are increasing quite dramatically, and they don't have GSP, they don't have duty-free access. Yes. So even where there's not duty-free access, Bangladesh is competing very effectively.
Yeah, and except R&D goods, possibly there are some areas like leather, jute goods, frozen fruits, for which Bangladesh needs to go ahead in planned manner. And what's your observation about that?
I think definitely there's potential, as you say, in many sectors. When we had the visiting parliamentarians from the European Parliament, we visited the Jute Diversification Centre, and we learned quite how much jute is now being used in a whole range of products in an innovative way. And that shows the potential. The golden fibre, some people said 10, 15 years ago, the story is over for jute. I think the story is just beginning, because jute is an environmentally friendly fibre. It's versatile, it can be mixed with other fibres. So I really hope the jute takes off, because it's also an attractive product. Yep. Then we went to a pharmaceuticals factory,
Yes.
State-of-the-art facility producing, I think, 98% of Bangladesh's medicine is produced here. And I think the export market has huge potential because Bangladesh pharmaceuticals are competitive on price and on quality. And, it's just a question of volume and opening up new markets. So that's also an exciting sector. And what I like about Bangladesh is you suddenly discover new niche markets. I had no idea that Bangladesh is making and exporting lots of bicycles,
Yes.
And that's also great. I think in a climate change
Friendly,
world,
yeah.
this is a climate-friendly product. I'm partly Dutch, so we all rely on bicycles to get around in Amsterdam. So I think it's a great to see that. And I also hope on the services sector that with the young educated workforce, that's another really area with great potential for Bangladesh to earn, credit in the wider world. So I think there's a lot of exciting things happening on the economy front.
That's great. Excellency, it's the time to break. We are coming from shortly. Viewers, we are taking a short break. We will have more important and interesting conversation with our respected guests soon. After the break, stay with us. Hello and welcome to the special program of DBC News, Meet the Envoy. I'm Ishrat Jahan Urmi with you. Viewers, we are very fortunate to have a special guest in the studio, His Excellency, Ambassador and Head of Delegation of EU, Bangladesh, Charles Whiteley. Let's talk with him again. Welcome again,
Thank
Charles
you.
Whiteley. The global crisis, amid current global energy crisis following Ukraine-Russia war, you have taken some steps to solve the problem. So far, we know. On the other hand, Bangladesh is at initial stage in facing the crisis. What's your suggestion for us in this situation?
No, I think you're absolutely right. This is a crisis. It's difficult for everybody. Certainly difficult for Ukraine as facing the aggression from Russia with thousands killed and 5 million people who are now refugees having to flee their homes, lots of children being forced from their homes. So we want this crisis to end as soon as possible, also because, as you say, it's having an impact on many areas globally, from fuel to food and other areas. We in the EU have to plan for our own fuel needs, and this is proving very difficult because we've committed now to removing our dependence on Russian oil and Russian gas. So that's a big change for us. And it means we have to reconfigure our energy needs and also ultimately accelerate the move towards renewable energy. I think for Bangladesh, it's also posing some difficulties. Of course, the difficulties can affect fuel and food imports. One thing I would stress is that we have imposed sanctions on Russia. Many countries have imposed sanctions on Russia, and they are aimed to target the Russian war machine to make it less capable of attacking the people of Ukraine. And it's targeted on people who influence that war machine, from oligarchs to members of government and so on. What it doesn't do is forbid food imports. So there's nothing in our sanctions that stop food being imported, for example, by Bangladesh from Russia. And I understand there are conversations going on to secure wheat imports from Russia. So I think it's important not to confuse the cause of these troubles. The cause of the trouble with the fuel and the food and the fertilizer is not European or American or other sanctions. It's the war being waged by Russia on another sovereign state. So I think to solve that and to help everybody, including Bangladesh, we need to end the war as quickly as possible through diplomatic means. I think I'd pay tribute to what Bangladesh is trying to do in the United Nations. The Honourable Prime Minister is part of the Global Crisis Group with the United Nations Secretary General and 5 other major world leaders. And they're working very hard to try to address at a global level the consequences of this crisis, including for food and fuel. So I wish Bangladesh well in making that support to finding a solution. And I think everybody appreciates the fact that the Honourable Prime Minister and others are engaged on this issue. From our side, on the EU side, we're trying to mobilise more funding for countries in Africa that may be affected by shortages, because they're facing the most acute situation. Half of the grain produced by Ukraine that's used by the World Food Programme, that grain comes from Ukraine. So it means the World Food Programme will be very short of grain if the crisis and the blockade by the Russians of Ukrainian grain exports continues. And that means in turn there will be hunger in Africa. So we don't want to see that.
Yes.
And I very much hope that the work by UN, Turkey and the United Nations and others to unblock the situation for the export of grain will be successful very soon. And I think we can be optimistic that things are moving in the right direction on this one issue, on the export of grain.
Excellency, you were in second time in Bangladesh. You were a few years back. You were here. So that time and this time, what's your observation about Bangladesh, the changes and like other things?
I think we need several hours for that conversation because so much has changed in Bangladesh in 12 years. It's remarkable to come back. I've been back now for 9 months and I've travelled around quite a lot of Bangladesh. So I see that the changes aren't just happening in Dhaka, they're happening across the country. And I mean, when you land at Dhaka airport now as a foreigner, it's entirely different to 12 years ago. You see this massive new airport taking shape, the new overhead line and the other infrastructure that's being built, the high-rise buildings. 12 years ago there were very few high-rise buildings. So I think what's nice is that there's also been an effort to keep greenery in Dhaka, with parks and trees and streets around the skyscrapers so that not all the greenery is eradicated. Because after all, it's important that the city is livable for human beings. It's not just about the architecture. But I think clearly in human development terms, things have moved on a lot. The life expectancy is now around 74 years. And child mortality, maternal mortality, all these key indicators of human development have improved rapidly. So I think that's very encouraging, and I hope that this development will continue and that Bangladesh will meet all its goals, for example, of being a developed country by 2041. And certainly the EU, as a strong, long-standing friend and partner of Bangladesh, is there to be supportive and to follow that process with great interest.
And what's your observation about our media?
Well, I'm here today. It's nice to be on a chat show in Bangladesh. I think there's a great energy in the media here. That's a lot of engagement. Also, what is nice is the level to which the media is interested in foreign issues. You often invite foreign diplomats and foreign representatives to share their views, and that's good for us. And it's also helps us to learn more about the media here. So I've been very happy in my first few months here to meet a lot of journalists, and you saw when our parliamentarians were here, we had a DCAB talk with the diplomatic correspondents of Bangladesh. The head of the delegation from the parliament, she was a Finnish Green MEP. Afterwards she said, in all her years of work, all the countries she's been to, she has never been in a room with so many media representatives who asked such great questions and who were so engaged. So I think that says something about the landscape here and also the journalists here, the caliber of the journalists.
Excellency, we are end of our program. If you say something, your last word for our viewers.
Well, thank you for having me. You can rely on the EU as a steadfast and long-term partner and friend of Bangladesh, and I look forward to working with everybody in the coming years.
Thank you for coming. Viewers, we are at the end of our program. Thank you, viewers, for watching Meet the Envoy. Stay connected.